Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's Emcees are from the world of YouTube. Millions watch them.
I know what you're thinking. Tonight's Emcees are not cats, though. They're online personalities, but if you're not familiar with their internet selves...
Maybe you're familiar with The Amazing Race, Season 22 and currently on All Stars, premiering now.
Well, they were more on Season 22 than All Stars, but who's counting?
I'm not. Please welcome YouTube hosts Joey Graceffa and Meghan Camarena.
Hello there.
Wow, Joey, that was awesome. I've never had to introduce myself like that before.
I know, me either.
We should do it more often.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe only at home.
Okay. Tonight's awards are about the power of social media. It brings people together, breaks down isolation. YouTube did that for me when I was a teenager.
Making videos on YouTube is not only our job, but it's become a place of community. That's where Joey and I met originally, and it's also where I've met a lot of my really close friends that I consider family.
Yeah. On my channel, I make daily videos on YouTube, which is basically like a video diary every single day. And I made a video called Alcoholism, where I kind of let kids know that it's okay, they're not alone, and so many kids after that were able to like open up and just make videos about their story as well.
It's really inspiring. My YouTube channel is a nerdy assortment of goodies, but how I got started on YouTube is quite unique. My whole life, my mom battled mental disorders and took it out on me. That kind of led to me growing up and dealing with depression, and then also led to me drinking and kind of just wondering why I was even here. I decided to make a huge life change, and my faith had a lot to do with it. But you know, when you make a huge life change, usually you have to say goodbye to old friends, and that's what I had to do. So, YouTube became my best friend, and that's actually where I found a lot of my friends as well. And it's been an amazing platform because I've been able to share my story about depression, alcohol abuse, and suicide, and it's helped so many people. That's why I'm honored to be presenting today for Didi Hirsch, because they do the same thing. They have therapists in hundreds of schools they help kids out before things get way too worse. Didi Hirsch can help, oh, I'm sorry. Didi Hirsch couldn't help so many people without board members like Shawn Amos, the co-chair of these awards. From an airport in London to an SUV with 3 children, and even the shower, I made that part up. Shawn has been the driving force behind Didi Hirsch. As you'll see, he is a man of many hats. Literally, he wears a bunch of different hats. I think he puts Pharrell up. His hats are awesome. And he's the CEO of Freshwire, a content marketing company. Shawn also is a musician and producer. He just released his 4th album, The Reverend Shawn Amos Tells It. Shawn's sister, Sarah Amos, is his co-chair. These siblings get along so well that Sarah is Chief Creative Officer at Freshwire. Before teaming up with Shawn, she was an Emmy Award-winning producer at ABC and a senior producer for World News with Diane Sawyer. Her role was to oversee the integration of the digital content on its online Yahoo network with ABC TV News. Please welcome Sarah and Shawn Amos, co-chairs of tonight's Erasing the Stigma Awards.
We meet again. I brought backup this year. What?
Good backup.
We'd like to welcome you to the 18th annual Erasing the Stigma Awards and our first ever dinner. So, woo! And a bit of good news at the start. We have set an attendance record for any Erasing the Stigma Awards. So our first dinner and our highest attendance. So, go team. I was first introduced to Didi Hirsch in the early days after my mother's 2003 suicide. One of the first things I did after receiving the news was I sent an email. Facebook was still a few years away, but I really needed to connect. I needed to share. I needed to receive comfort from my social network. And so I fired off an email, and it helped. We're social creatures, and social media brings us all closer. It erases the stigma of mental illness, and it gives millions of people hope and shared communities.
So Shawn and I are your typical sibling story. Different moms, same dad, born 15 years and 5,000 miles apart. The journeys we took to get here were very, very different. But our passion for truly great stories was the same. And now we're lucky enough to spend our days running a business that helps brands build digital communities through their own stories. We're in the middle of a transformative moment. Consumers are pretty much controlling the conversation as businesses fight for relevancy amidst a sea of cat videos and teenage selfies.
Which is nothing wrong. Actually, Meghan taught us how to do the perfect selfie backstage, so later on she'll be giving lessons.
Communication has become democratized, information flows in a pretty much random fashion, and while we're all just doing our best to keep up, something else is happening. People around the world are sharing their stories. They're discussing topics once considered taboo, erasing stigma.
On YouTube, on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, LinkedIn, Vine, Instagram, Hive, Snapchat, Pinterest, blogs and vlogs. Millions of people are sharing their stories about fighting, successfully fighting anxiety, depression, bipolar, OCD, schizophrenia, ADD, ADHD, bulimia, addiction. No topic is off limits. We're now entering a world where it is easier to speak openly about mental illness than it is to stay silent.
So tonight, it's a celebration of social media's power to erase the stigma faster than in any time in our history. It's also an invitation to all of you to step into the conversation with the two of us. We're asking you all to just take a moment and exercise your social media skills. Make a public stand to erase the stigma. We want to grow this conversation starting tonight. And we're happy to see it's already happening.
It's not always a very serious conversation.
But it's always a very charismatic conversation.
So we want to say a few thanks before we move on. There are a lot of people who've been working nearly nonstop to pull this event off tonight. Our presenting sponsors, Nancy and Miles Rubin. Our leadership co-chairs, Charlotte and Jeremy Fletcher. Jamie and Klaus Heidegger. Warren and Gail Kammer-Lieberfarb. Merle and Peter Mullen. And I'd like to thank our advisory committee who was really instrumental in getting us our talent this year and pulling this thing together. Drew Baldwin, Ted Cohen, Kate Greer, Tracy Tague. And I want to say thanks to our team at Freshwire, particularly Thomas Salvatore, who produced that video you saw up front, and a bunch of great tribute videos you can see throughout the evening.
Woo!
So, Thomas, thank you. And I want to thank my sister. The second thing I did after I sent those emails out was I called my sister. And she was by my side in 2003, and I'm glad you're by my side tonight. So, we got to get a selfie. Hold on.
Bear with us. No big deal.
Hold it up. Meghan says hold it up. Find the light. And do the thing on the top. Let's do that one. Okay. Okay, cool.
Please,
All right,
everyone,
guys.
retweet that when he posts it. Let's get it around. So anyways, we hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And now please welcome back our MC, Meghan Camarena.
What do erasing the stigma, the phrase, I have an idea, and poetry have in common? Dr. Kita Curry. When Kita became the CEO of Didi Hirsch 15 years ago, the agency helped 22,000 people a year. Now it helps over 90,000. Kind of amazing. But I don't think she's stopping there. Those numbers will definitely grow. Last year, Didi Hirsch was one of 5 agencies in the US selected for the new disaster distress line. Even more lives are touched when the board, staff, and volunteers share their stories. No one does that more passionately than Didi Hirsch's CEO. Here she is, Dr. Kita Curry.
Welcome. This is a lot of fun. You know, we have many stories we can tell, and tonight I'm going to tell you the story of becoming comfortable with my mental illness. But first, 2 facts. Each year, 25% of us will have a diagnosable mental illness. And in our lifetime, 50% of us will. Are you confused? 25%, 50%? It's because I suffer from depression, but I don't have it every year, thank God. But in my lifetime, I will be part of that 50%. We learn to keep secrets when we're very young. And the first secret I learned to keep about mental illness was when I was 12. My Uncle Bobby was in the Merchant Marines, and he was washed overboard and died. At least that's what my grandmother and grandfather said. But my mother, who was from the other side of the family, said it was suicide. But no one talked about it, and so it didn't take long before I thought I had imagined that it had happened, until a cousin died by suicide, and I asked, and someone said yes, at the same age. And when I was 15, I ended up with a secret to keep. My depression had gotten very bad, although I don't know if I knew the name for it then. And my mother, I realize now, was suffering from postpartum depression. And so I just didn't know what to do. So I got on my bicycle, I put my cat Tallulah in the basket, and I ran away. Except I wasn't thinking very clearly because I realized I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I disappeared in the only other way I knew. And when my mother heard me throwing up, she came in and I told her what I'd done. And she said, "You're just trying to get attention." I was trying to get attention, but I didn't get it. That was the end of the conversation. And then we can fast forward over a few decades. I don't want to keep you all through your dinner. And there was the outside Kita who was getting Phi Beta Kappa and a National Institute of Mental Health scholarship to graduate school, and there was the inside Kita. The inside Kita still had ups and downs sometimes, and had one down that was so bad she ended up in a hospital for a suicide attempt. But obviously, things turned out pretty well. And I had a chapter in my life that started with Didi Hirsch. It was right about the time that Didi Hirsch started these Erasing the Stigma Awards and put Erasing the Stigma in its mission. So how could I be the leader? How could I congratulate other people for telling their stories if I didn't tell my own? I wanted to be a fearless leader. And so I started telling my story, but I started with the easy part, my childhood. That wasn't my fault. And then I talked about the toll it takes on a family member when someone you love is very ill. Because I have a sister who's been in jail dozens of times, made many, many serious suicide attempts, been homeless, and I can't do anything about it. She doesn't accept it, and she doesn't want to take medication. But you know what? In the process of telling my story, I found out I was actually not just helping other people, I was helping myself, because I started not to feel so ashamed inside. And in fact, when I hit a low spell, for the first time in my life, and here I am a psychologist that had encouraged many people to see a psychiatrist for medication, for the first time in my life, I started taking medication, and I said, "My God, why didn't I do this long ago?" And the only answer could be the stigma that lived inside of me, because if I started taking medication, it would mean I was really sick. And then let's move on down the information superhighway, and we come to the time when we started taping these events and putting them on YouTube. And that was the year that I was talking about genetics and taking good care of yourself and watching out just the same you would if you had breast cancer. and I told the story about the time that I found out, oh, I thought mental illness was on one side of my family, but it's on both. And lo and behold, a cousin of mine found that YouTube, sent it to all my relatives, and some weren't very happy. And then, just 2 weeks ago, I really was given a kickstart into all this new social media. I spoke at the American Association of Suicidology, and you know, I knew that was a safe crowd because who else would go to a lecture on suicide on a Saturday? But afterwards, someone emailed me, a perfect stranger, and said, I'm going to read it. Kita, I wish I could have stayed at the conference long enough to see your speech. After the tweets about it, I emailed my friend, who are you magical Didi Hirsch people? I liked the magical, but I wasn't sure about the tweets, as it sounded like there were more, and I didn't have a Twitter account, so someone went on to theirs and showed me. And there were pictures, and there were various comments, and one of them was, Didi Hirsch's CEO, Kita Curry, on her own suicide attempt and harnessing our pain to support others. I was kind of miffed. I felt like people were taking control of my message. But then I read his note again, or the tweet, and I realized that it didn't say that Kita Curry talked about harnessing her pain to support others. He said harnessing our pain to support others. And then I realized he's one of the 50%. It's actually nearly 50%. And so I decided it's time, and I got a Twitter account. Shawn had to help me a lot. Because I realized I could use it to promote our cause. And we need to promote our cause. We need to tell our stories. Because all those people that think that if you have mental illness, you're shooting people or you're living homeless, don't realize that we are living among them. All those people that say they really wouldn't want to work with someone with a mental illness or they really wouldn't want them to live next door, they need to figure out that we're already there, that we're living right next door to them right now, and they don't know it. So there's something, if you've been here before, that I do every year. One time someone came up to me and said, oh, I remember that man that asked us to all stand up. It's like, yeah, that was me. So now I'm going to ask everyone in this room that is part of that nearly 50% who has had at some point in their life a mental illness, and remember, Shawn mentioned a lot of them: panic disorder, anxiety, ADHD, ADD. The book with all the mental illnesses is many inches thick. So will everybody who is part of that nearly 50% please stand? I already am, obviously. And don't sit down. Don't sit down. Because now I want everybody that knows, loves, or cares about someone that's part of our 50% to stand up. Okay. Okay, we know we're the majority now. It's safe to tell your story. And now I have one more. You can sit down now, sorry. I will in a minute. I have one more thing to do. This is a first for me. Let me see, I've got to get this set up. Okay, what's going on here? All right, yep. All right. I've done 2 selfies. They weren't too good. And now, would anybody else in the room that has a phone and that can either take a picture of themselves and send it to a friend through texting, or who knows how to Twitter, I want you all to take a selfie and then send a message that you're here helping erase the stigma. So here goes. Oh wait, I have to do something with my, don't I have to do something with my camera? Shawn?
There you go. There you go. Hold on. Okay, there you go.
Okay, we'll do it.
I'm gonna get out. There you go. Smile. You look lovely. Look at that. The camera loves you. The camera loves you. Okay. Use photo. Boom. Okay. Boom. Tweet.
Okay.
Good. Done. Yes.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your dinner, and we'll be back with our honorees in a little while.